I'm Mike Newman. As I said earlier, I would like to introduce one more person that has entered the room a little bit late. Back in the back, we have Ron Wortham. Ron, raise your hand. Ron is the Government Affairs Director for the Realtors Association. He's very involved with this issue, fighting it at both a local, a state, and back on a national level. So Ron he's one of the good guys in this. Thank you, Ron, for what you do. Anyway, ecology interpreted the various laws relating to in-stream flow protection as creating a priority for in-stream flow protection before evaluating other potential uses of the state's waters. Now that's a quote from Tom Pors. Tom Pors is a water rights attorney out of Seattle. He wrote a very long dissertation going through Department of Ecology and the Swinomish lawsuit after it happened in 2013, in October of 2013. His entire dissertation is on the justwateralliance.org website. It's very, very good. I would urge you all to go into that website. There's a lot of good information there, and that is one piece you should probably read. How do I advance this?
Right arrow. Far right.
Bingo. Lousy science. Poor math. When I agreed to do this, one of the things Zach told me is you can't get mad, you can't beat up the Washington State Department of Ecology. I said, okay. So those of you that know me know that I sometimes get a little excited, and but just April 24th, approximately April 24th, there was a hearing held down in Buckley over the Shoreline Management Act, attended by a few people that were in this room. Senator Pam Roach chaired it. Representative Bob Hasagawa was there also. We had Republicans and Democrats talking about shoreline management, and ecology provided me with the best quote I've ever heard. And what they said was, we do not use scientific principles in the formulation of our regulations. So whenever I start to get mad, that is just what I go back to. Ecology does not use scientific principles in the formulation of their regulations. And you're going to see huge examples of that as we move forward. They have put fish before people. Violation of state law, but nobody's calling them on it. Ecology is mandated by the RCW, is actually laws created by the legislature. The WAC is regulations written by non-elected people. Ecology is putting their regulations over the laws that have been passed by our legislature. Control water and land use. We heard Chairman Cladsby. I am from over in eastern Washington, where irrigation districts are being attacked, and we're going to go into that in just a minute. Over there, ecology is deciding who can farm and where you can farm, what you can farm. They are cutting irrigation levels down, reducing them. And if they're not stopped, your grandkids are going to grow up in the state of Washington, which is the home of the sage grouse, another endangered species, places where they used to grow apples. But the irrigation mounts are being dropped to the point where some of our apple orchards are in danger. In-stream flow is a new mechanism. In-stream flow was actually passed by the Washington State Legislature, I believe, in 1972. There's another series of laws that go along with in-stream flow that tend to enhance ecology's authority a little bit, passed in 1989, in the late 80s, some of them in 89, but mostly in the late 80s. Mitigation versus enhancement. Actually, mitigation versus enhancement, I should say, versus land control. We have some more information on the mitigation, and I'm going to let Zach handle that one, and I'm going to move a little bit more into the science. This is a chart. Basically, we all grew up with one of these in grade school, the cycle of life. This is a little more complicated, but you've got water evaporating out of the ocean. It is evaporating out of the farm fields, out of the forests, up into the atmosphere. It comes back over to the mountains. It comes back down the river. It melts, runs off. Some of it goes down into underground aquifers, and they return back to the ocean. But the water is it's all cyclic. It's all cyclic. This system has been operating and working very well, managed by God, or by Mother Nature if you prefer, for over 5 billion years. It got messed up when the Department of Ecology got involved in 1986, because they don't use scientific principles in the formulation of their regulations. Over in eastern Washington, where I'm at, we have the domestic wells come out of these underground aquifers. Drill down, put in a well. The irrigation is right now, about half of it's coming out of wells and about half of it comes out of irrigation ditches, open irrigation ditches. The open irrigation ditches is what ecology is attacking. Now, USGS has done studies, and they have found that in the springtime, when we turn on the irrigation, the level of the wells coming up out of the aquifer increases. They rise up. The irrigation ditches are recharging the aquifers. They also have studies saying that the irrigation water is moving directly back into the river. Now, this over here, this is a typical irrigation system in eastern Washington. I stole that picture off the internet. I have no idea where it's taken from. But for our purposes today, these are hand lines we're irrigating in eastern Washington. Those sprinklers shoot water about 60, 65 feet. They shoot it 25 feet into the air. It's 95 degrees in the middle of July. The wind's blowing 10 miles an hour. You got a humidity level of about 10%. How much of that water, according to ecology, is recharged back into the watershed, into the river, into the aquifers? You want to take a guess? Remember, they don't use scientific principles. Jason guesses 0. You're half right. John knows the answer.
It evaporates in the mountains and comes right back to the surface range.
You're using sound science. I'm sorry, but we cannot accept that. That is correct. What happens is a lot of it evaporates. Jason says 0. If this water comes out of an irrigation ditch, ecology's figures grant 0 recharge. Not one drop of water makes it back into the watershed at all. It all goes away. They don't know where, but it goes away. John's heard this presentation before. He said 100%. If this water comes out of a well, 100% recharge, not one bit of it evaporates. Not one bit of it evaporates. Now, if you know a little bit about plants and about botany, this water gets sucked up into these plants and it evaporates out of them. Plants are just like you and me. We don't use water. We don't consume water. We don't keep water. We take it into our body, it comes back out. You take it in, it comes back out. If you think you can hold it in, I'll get you a gallon and we'll let you stand up here and see how long you can do it, but it doesn't happen, and plants do the same thing. It goes out, it goes into the atmosphere, it moves on. Now, we've talked a lot about ecology's math. Well, ecology does count this water that goes out. The irrigation district I'm in, eastern Washington, got sued because along the irrigation districts, there's plant life growing up. There's trees, mostly cottonwoods, a few birch, a lot of grass, it's green. When you look at it from the air 50 years ago, I'm in the Methow Valley, Mazama, Winthrop, Twisp, town of Carlton, the town of Methow, there was a green belt all the way around those cities. That was caused by those small towns. That was caused by the irrigation district, the growth up around the irrigation ditches. Okay, most of those ditches are now gone. A lot of that green belt is gone, but ecology sued the irrigation district because there's trees growing around those ditches. Those trees draw 350 gallons of water a day up through their roots and evaporate it out into the air. The water right from the Methow Valley Irrigation District says agriculture. Department of Ecology sued. They were wasting water because those trees were drawing it up, and the Department of Ecology won that lawsuit. We're under a waste order right now. Right now, they're negotiating with the Department of Ecology, and what it's going to end up being is, if the deal gets done, is all the landowners over there are going to sell their water rights to the Department of Ecology, and the Department of Ecology is going to issue back permits, interruptible permits, for the farmers to use water in eastern Washington. I'm in the Methow. The same lawsuit is happening in the Wenatchee, in the Yakima, over in Asotin County. It is happening throughout eastern Washington. That's why we will be the state that used to grow apples if we don't get control of the Department of Ecology. So what really happens on this cycle is, this water, it gets evaporated up from the plants, it goes into the atmosphere, it goes somewhere. We really don't know where. But there's the next valley over, has the same thing happening, and the water is evaporating out of that watershed also. And it's going wherever the wind blows. If the wind is blowing to the north, it's going into the next valley in the north and it's coming down. Ecology doesn't count that. Here in Skagit County, if the wind is coming out of the north, the water that's evaporating out of the Stillaguamish is ending up in the Skagit, or the Nooksack, or the Fraser, because it's moving north. Ecology does not count any of that new water coming in. Ecology does not count rain, unless, do they have it over here? It's kind of hidden back in the corner. If you have a rain catchment system, ecology will count rain if you catch it. It's kind of an interesting situation, but all the rain we got today did not add any water at all into our watershed. But if you put a 5-gallon bucket out in your yard, get ecology to certify that 5-gallon bucket as a catchment system, you can fill that 5-gallon bucket up, dump it out exactly in the spot where it would have fallen as rain, and you've just added 5 gallons of new water to the watershed based on ecology's science. Ecology does not use sound scientific principles in determining their regulations. They don't use sound scientific principles at all. The trees for mitigation we talked about. Well, let's talk about the recharge a little bit. I talked about it down here. 50% recharge in Skagit County on your septic systems. Every study done by a credible science organization, most of them by United States Geological Survey, USGS, say 93 to 97%. Ecology says 50%. When you ask them about where the other 50% goes, they can't answer that question. When you challenge them with their 50% recharge rate, their answer is, well, maybe we're a little conservative. And that's Jackie Klug, who I was talking to. Maybe she's a little conservative. At 80%, she'd be a little conservative. At 50%, she's not using sound scientific principles to formulate her regulations. Trees for mitigation. With the negotiations going on over in the Methow Valley right now, Ecology has agreed to grant to the irrigation district, if they sign the deal and sign over all the water rights, 350 gallons of water per day for every tree they take down. Okay? When you drive in Mount Vernon, heading up Division Street or up First Street, you look out across, see all those clear cuts on Cultus Mountain? How much credit do we get for those here in Skagit County? Absolutely none. That's right. Absolutely none. All those trees you're looking at Cultus Mountain, those are in the Nookachamps Basin, and that's probably the next one to get closed. You drive south on I-5, you get south of Mount Vernon, you look up on Cascade Ridge up to the east, you see all those clear cuts? Those are in Fisher Carpenter Creek. How much do we get for those? How much recharge credit do we get for those? None. None. Ecology doesn't add, they only subtract. When they're figuring out how much water you can use, they don't add. They don't consider the impact of weather. They don't consider the impact of water evaporating in one basin and moving into another. They don't consider the impact of trees. Why are they so friendly over in Eastern Washington, giving us credit for trees? Because when the farmers came into Eastern Washington originally, the homesteaders, they're in a dry, arid land. They all filed for their water rights. And the landowners own the water rights. Western Washington, nobody filed. They didn't need it. The problem they had when they came over here, the homesteaders into Western Washington, is the same problem we have today. How do you get this water off your land so you can start working the fields in the spring? How do you get it off? You go look at the farm fields. They all got big ditches in them right now trying to drain that water off. And then floods. That's the problems in Western Washington. We have too much water. Except in Department of Ecology regulations where we don't have enough water. The Department of Ecology does not use sound scientific principles in the formulation of their regulations. Why are Anacortes and PUD involved? Primarily to protect their own water rights. It's interesting. I've been pretty involved with PUD for quite some time. Not so much with the city of Anacortes, so I'm going to talk a little more about PUD than about Anacortes. But how does this affect you? Well, if you live in rural Skagit County, or if you have a piece of property in rural Skagit County, you can't put a well on it. If you've put your well on since 2001, April 14th, 2001, that well's illegal. Right now, nobody's telling you you have to shut it off, but nobody knows what they're going to do tomorrow either. Skagit PUD has spent $70 million complying with in-stream flow regulations written by the State Department of Ecology. $25 million for a new pump station on the Skagit River off the South Skagit Highway. There's about $22 million in increasing the size of their reservoir and almost $25 in upgrading the treatment plant so that it can handle higher quantities. Those numbers came from Skagit PUD, and actually from my good friend Commissioner Robertson is where I got that number. What is the results of that $70 million? Well, 8% annual rate increases. They have spent down most all of their cash reserves. 8% annual rate increases for the foreseeable future. They have a $1.4 million operating deficit this year, and they are behind on their maintenance. They're not keeping up with their maintenance plan, and they haven't for several years. What is the economic impact on you? Well, 6,000 families have property that they can't use, they can't build on. Now, Zach mentioned a little bit about the assessment issue, and I've talked to Dave about it a little bit before. And Right now, Skagit County Assessor's Office takes the position that you can get a mitigation plan and you can build, and therefore they are not going to reassess your land unless you go in and file an appeal. Well, this is the position where landowners find themselves in, is they go down to the county to get a building permit. County says, no, you got to go to ecology and you got to get a mitigated plan, an approved mitigation plan before we can give you a building permit. So you go down to ecology to get an approved plan, and ecology tells you, well, they don't have a process yet. They don't have an application. They don't have a form. They don't have any way for you to apply for an approved mitigation plan. So you go back to the assessor's office and say, hey, I can't get a mitigation plan. I want my property reassessed. And they say, no, you go to Skagit County, they'll give you a building permit. Back when I was a kid, I used to watch a TV show every once in a while. Many of you look like you're about my age. You've probably seen it. And there's always the same scene in it. The boss man comes walking into the office and he's mad. And you can tell he's mad by the look on his face. He's mad. Right away, Larry Moore and Curly do this, pointing at the other guy. That's the Skagit County Building Department, Skagit County Assessor's Office, and the Department of Ecology. That's exactly what they're doing. They're all pointing the blame at somebody else, and nobody's doing anything to help the landowner. Nobody at all. So we'd appreciate it. Some help from the county. Dave? We'd like you to look at that policy on us reassessing that land. Snohomish County went through and just blanket reassessed them. All those lots, 80% cut in value because they did not have access to water. If ecology, or if we're successful and we find a way to get access to water, reassess them back up. 6,000 family investments, personal property. What happens if those properties do get reassessed? 6,000 properties lose value. How many of you had your property lose value over the last 4 or 5 years here in Skagit County? You've seen it? Yeah? How many of you saw your taxes go down? No. We have what's called a budget-based tax system, and Dave, if I screw this one up, you can jump in here and correct me a little bit, but I think I've got it down pretty good. A budget-based tax system. The assessor's office determines the value of all the properties. The various taxing districts determine how much money they need. The assessor's office takes the values, the budget, and determines what the tax rate is. If everybody's property goes down, everybody's taxes stay the same. But when you take 6,000 lots and you lower those dramatically, and you don't lower anybody else's, then everybody's taxes go up except for those 6,000 properties. Everybody does. And the impact will be felt hardest in larger taxing districts that have the most number of lots in them. Places like the Concrete School District. People in the Concrete School District or the Conway School District will have a significant impact if the assessor decides to treat these landowners, the impacted landowners, fairly. And I think we need to. We can't force these 6,000 people to pay for ecology's mistakes. We all need to pay for it until Dave Hayes back over here can fix it for us. Don't want to put you on the spot, Dave, but thank you. Okay. How this affects you? Okay. Anacortes litigation, this has already been touched on. Anacortes sided with the Swinomish tribe in their recent suit against ecology. That suit originally was going to be against ecology and the county. The county backed out. When they backed out, I thought it was an interesting move because ecology and the Swinomish tribe are they're really in this together. They're on the same side. The county has always been the bad guy for 20 years, going back as long as we could. The county stepped back out of this thing and let Ecology and Swinomish go after it. And if any of you actually watched that lawsuit on TV, no mention of science by anybody. It was all about the wording in the MOA contract. No mention of property rights. What the county did that turned out to be not a good thing is they left the Washington State Department of Ecology in the position of protecting your rights. It didn't work out so well. So we need to get the county back involved in this issue. In my opinion, that's something that needs to happen. We need to get the county back involved in this issue. PUD, they went neutral on the lawsuit. Peter Gilbert at PUD made the statement when they were discussing it that Skagit County PUD has always supported the Swinomish tribe in their endeavors in this matter. And that's a direct word-for-word quote. The situation they had was PUD Commissioner Jim Cook was going to vote no. He didn't want to support the Swinomish tribe. PUD Commissioner Al Littlefield was going to vote yes. He did want to support the Swinomish tribe. And PUD Commissioner Robbie Robertson was about 3 months away from an election. And they didn't want to force him to vote, so PUD went neutral. They did not write a brief supporting the Swinomish tribe. That's the only time that PUD has not supported the Swinomish tribe. This last one, Skagit River Flow Management Committee. Where are they? September of 2012, they had a meeting right here in this room. There was about 90 of us that showed up to watch them, ask them questions, and find out what they were doing to protect our water rights. A lot of hard questions were asked. I think one of the attendees at that meeting, who I don't believe I've seen here tonight, Peter Janicki, Peter isn't here tonight, asked the question. He says, I look at this table. They were sitting at a table in the middle, and we were all standing up around the outsides. He says, I look at this table, and I see two groups of people. People that are looking to sell water for profit, and people that are looking to increase their regulatory authority. Who is here to represent the landowners? Who's here to represent the farmers, the loggers, the people, the taxpayers? And they didn't answer his question. They didn't answer anybody's questions that night. And to the best of my knowledge, they have gone completely underground. They haven't had a public meeting since. I'm sure they're still communicating with each other. I don't know how they're doing it, whether it's Skype, whether it's illegal closed meetings. But they have taken extreme steps to ensure that the public cannot see what they are doing. And that's another issue that needs to be brought up. I've gone to county commissioner meeting and asked county commissioners who are supposed to be on this committee to tell me when the meetings are being held. And I haven't heard anything back. Whether they're not holding meetings or they're doing it underground and the county, since the county stepped out, they're not inviting the county, I don't know. But thank you very much. If you leave from here with one thing tonight, I want you to remember. The Department of Ecology does not use sound scientific principles in the formulation of the regulations. Thank you.